Ladies and gentlemen, damas y caballeros, it's Leave It in the Ring.
And welcome back to another edition of Leave It in the Ring Radio. I'm your host, Dave Duenas, with my co-host, Mr. Gabriel Montoya, who's running late. Fight fans, you want to call in, 347-215-7598. Certainly can. Let's talk some boxing here on Leave It in the Ring. We have Mauricio Herrera, who just fought this past Saturday against Danny Garcia in Puerto Rico, and got the short end of the stick. So he's going to be calling in, or we're going to be calling him in to discuss about that match and his thoughts of what he thought happened, what the judges apparently saw in their own eyes that Danny Garcia was up, how they were able to see it for Danny Garcia, where I think 98% of the world that viewed it on Saturday night and even after in the archives saw that it was Mauricio Herrera who definitely had won that fight, was landing the more significant punches. He was definitely putting in the work. He had established the ring generalship. He was doing something. You know what? I was talking to Brian Fogg about this, I think a couple days after the fight, and we were discussing the game plan that Mauricio Herrera definitely had went in. Now, this is the thing that I like that Mauricio really did, because you don't see this a whole lot in boxing anymore. There's another guy that does do it in the sport, but doesn't really get a whole lot of credit for it. So the jab to the stomach is something that's kind of been like a lost art. And Mauricio definitely showed how a jab to the stomach can really take a guy out of their game plan, the rhythm, because it stops you in the middle of your track. And what it makes it eventually do to you is it makes the other guy start being cautious of what that belly shot. Because if you're hitting the person right in the solar plex, no matter if it's a little pity pat or if it's a strong jab, it's stopping you, and it's making you crouch down. It's making your do these sit-up crunches standing up, and it's not allowing you to set. So you definitely saw that with Danny Garcia. It wasn't that Danny wasn't trying, because he was definitely letting his hands go whenever he felt that he was in range. But it was Mauricio who kept the pace. It was Mauricio who was not allowing Danny to get in the mind frame that he was the big power puncher. He was the guy that was the champion, and it was his showcase in Puerto Rico. Mauricio reminded him that, this is a fight, and you're in.
Thanks, man. We've been having some difficulties here on the show for some reason. But hey, thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate you coming on Leave It in the Ring again.
Oh, no, thanks for having me on back.
First off, man, I'll applaud you on that game plan, because I was talking about this earlier. That jab to the stomach, it's something of a lost art. Not a lot of fighters use it. Not a lot of fighters try to put it into a game plan or use it as a setup to follow up with a combination. When did you guys come up with the idea of using the jab to the stomach to set everything else up behind that?
Well, the jab to the stomach has been a punch I've used a lot, overall my career in the sparring. I'm always jabbing in the head and jabbing in the stomach, and I know a lot of fighters don't use it. I like it. I think it's something that surprises all the fighters. In this fight, I knew it was going to work. Danny stands straight up and flush at times. He squares up and leaves that open, and I took advantage of that. From the early rounds, I started tagging him pretty good with that. I caught him good. I let out his hair a couple times, and that's a great punch. I mean, it's not a light punch. I think that's one of the hardest shots I have thrown.
I agree with you, because that punch to the solar plex, no matter what. I mean, even if you kind of rabbit punch it, it always makes the guy stop, to protect themselves rather than the head. I think with the head shots, a lot of guys will tense up really quick to try to absorb it. But with your body, with your stomach, your solar plex, it's a little harder to tense up. Do you think?
Yeah, it stops you right in your tracks. And they don't like that. They don't expect that. I like to go up and down it, so they don't know when I'm going to throw it. And that was working for me. I mean, the jab to the stomach takes all your air out. I didn't want to be too, throw hooks and wide turn punches. I think with Danny was easier just to go straight up the middle. And I did that with the jab all night.
Now, the one thing that I saw Danny try to do, which you're supposed to try to, this is the way you would counter somebody jabbing in the stomach, is drop the straight right downwards. Now, he was trying to do that, but it seemed to me that you kind of already knew that was going to be the counter shot, so you already had another way of kind of making a miss. How soon did you figure that he was going to try to throw that shot at you?
I knew before we fought. I mean, everybody that I spar with, I know tried to land that shot when I jabbed the stomach. And that's why I think it was important for me to feint a lot and keep Danny thinking at all times and on his toes, because the feint just throws you off. He doesn't know when I'm going to throw that body shot. So even when I do, sometimes they don't have time to set up to throw that right. And if they do, I'm always expecting that punch to come through, so I'm either trying to skid underneath it or just slide it off.
You know what's amazing is that a lot of people don't understand how vulnerable you are when you jab to that stomach. So you got to have your timing perfect. You got to have your conditioning too, because you're using a lot of your weight to kind of bend down, and then you're extending your body a little bit more than you would on an upright jab, right?
Yeah, it's a dangerous punch, because you're dropping your left hand to shoot downwards, and you can easily get caught with the right hand. But I knew before the fight, before coming in, that, like I said before, everybody, my timing and my rhythm was going to throw them all off. And if you can't find the rhythm of what I'm doing and my timing, I can hit you in the stomach all night with the jab, even if I'm going to throw it. You just don't know when I'm going to throw it or how I will set it up to throw it. And that's the beautiful thing of boxing. That's when it comes down to a chess game,
I teach my kids that jab, and it was exciting for them to finally see a professional fighter use it in front of them, and not just use it once. I mean, you were using it numerous times, and it was done so beautifully that I was really surprised that Angel Garcia couldn't figure it out. I mean, even himself, he just keeps telling his son to throw more punches, but he never told him anything about how to kind of nullify what you were doing, and it was a beautiful fight, man. I got to tell you, I know I've spoken to a lot of folks, and even my co-host here, we agree. It was 8-4. I've had a few people argue with me saying it was a draw. A few people said, no, Danny won it. But I've watched it already, 6-7 times, and I got to tell you, I can't seem to sway it to being a draw or for Danny with so-called power punches that I saw that really clearly didn't even land on you. He was missing and hitting. He was hitting more air, if anything.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they have any highlights of him landing any punches. I think even some of the commentators also thought that he was landing some punches, and then they go back to the highlights and then kind of say, oh yeah, well he did kind of miss there and he blocked those. It seems like he's hitting me at times from a certain angle, but when you go back and look at the replay, you see that I made him miss most of all shots.
Yeah.
Hi, Mauricio. Congratulations. I know you lost,
thank you.
But I think in many ways you won. And certainly on my scorecard, I had you 8-4. I gave you the first 4 rounds. I thought Danny, you started to come on, but every adjustment you adjusted. How important for you, being in Puerto Rico, was it to just set the tempo right off the bat? It seemed like you took charge and began your game plan immediately. Was that part of the game plan? Was to never let that crowd get in the way?
Yeah, I came prepared. I was so focused, and that day, I was throughout the whole week that I stayed there. The fans were good to me. The people, and going into that fight, the only time was going in my head a little nervous was on the way, the drive to the Coliseum. Little nerves hit me, for about 5 minutes, and my palms started to sweat. But then I just went back and started focusing and relaxing, and that was the only time I was ever nervous. once I got in the Coliseum, going out actually when they called us to go out to the fight, I know it was a big arena. I know there was a lot of people. As I was walking out, I never looked up. I never looked up at the crowd. I was so focused just looking at the ring straight ahead and just going to where I was going to perform. And even though that crowd was so loud, by the time I got to the ring, and the boos were so loud, you can feel it, in the pit of your stomach. It almost felt like a bunch of bees, all they're just buzzing, and they all want to sting you. And I felt that felt that in the pit of my stomach, but I stayed focused and just saying it was just me and him in that ring, and that's it. And when that bell rang, that's it. I just felt it was just me and him, and then I just started to go to work and felt so confident as the rounds kept going by.
One of the storylines that people didn't really make a big deal about it. It seemed like all they were doing was saying, this is the homecoming, and is Danny Garcia really a Puerto Rican? And that's all anybody was really pushing. For you, one of the greatest rivalries is Mexico versus Puerto Rico, and it's one of the great rites of passage a fighter can have from either of those ethnicities, or those cultures, rather. For you, was that what you were thinking in any way? Like, this is your Mexico versus Puerto Rico fight?
At times I would think that because they would push that and kept mentioning that, but I didn't let that, I didn't want to think it too much, overthink that. I kind of just wanted to be in my own and just concentrate, and do my work and know what I had. I knew what I was going to go through. And, they were doing the Mexico-Puerto Rico thing. And, I would think about that at times. But mostly I said, what, at the end of the day, it's people are going to want to see a great match. It doesn't matter, if you're Puerto Rican or Mexico or who. I think everybody around the world wants to see a great match. And that's what I was focusing on more also. And I knew that nothing was going to throw me off. I just kept my game plan, which really was just my natural way of fighting. So it came off, me having fun in the ring. I was getting to show all sides of what I can do. And, I was having fun. I said, I can try this on him. I was trying different things, and I thought I was in great shape. I never got that much time to train for any fight and that focus and that hard for this fight. And, I was so ready for that fight. If it was an all-out war, I was ready to go toe-to-toe for 12 rounds, and not be tired. I felt so good that night, and I had so much fun performing for everybody that night.
This is your first training camp, like in terms of, or do you mean the first time that you've spent this long? How long did you spend preparing?
Well, I was in the gym already, kind of just messing around. We never even knew this fight was going to come up. It came out of the blue in the middle of January, and we were still kind of up and waiting when it was for world title. We couldn't say no to that. And the fact that it was Danny Garcia, we knew we had a chance. So we just got into training. I think it was just exactly 8 weeks. We had no more time, I know Danny knew he was fighting around that date from like 3 to 4 months ago, so he should have been in the best shape of his life. And I took advantage of those 8 weeks and trained my ass off every day, up the hills, doing everything with Jose Torres, one of the guys that helps me train. And he got up every morning with me and ran with me, and it all paid off, it all paid off. And, other fights with my other promoter, we were getting short notices, they were my promoter Thompson was kind of a middleman, they get scrap fights, whatever they can get, they would call me, short notice. And a lot of those fights didn't work out for me, didn't prepare me like I did for this fight.
Let me ask you this, because, obviously every fighter's mind frame is to go in concentrated and focused on their game plan. But the first time you heard about getting the Danny Garcia fight and it was going to be in Puerto Rico, did yourself or your team, did you guys prepare yourself already knowing that even if you boxed the perfect fight, there was a strong possibility you weren't going to get that fight in terms of the scorecards?
Well, when we got offered the fight, with Danny, they had no location yet, so we got the fight signed already, and they just they were going to say it was in New York, maybe Puerto Rico, or in Vegas, and of course we were hoping Vegas, because even New York or Puerto Rico we knew was going to be all Danny's side. So yeah, we knew a little going in that it was going to be, everything was going to be an advantage for him, And we were worried about the judges and all that. And we try to find out who the judges were and the refs. We didn't know until the last minute, but we couldn't do anything anyways. But we knew that we were fighting for a world title, and we were going to give it our best. And if we beat Danny and they didn't see that, the people were going to see. The people were going to see, and they're the real judges, and it happened exactly like that.
Now, with this great win, I mean, you didn't get the win, obviously, on the record, but in the eyes of the fans and everybody that witnessed the fight, we all felt that you took the fight. You beat Danny Garcia. With that already being said, because we've kind of seen this as a trend with Golden Boy, when you beat a Golden Boy fighter, guess what? You're not brought back in again for another fight. Do you think that's going to happen to you? Have they reached out to you in contact of saying, hey, possible rematch, or let's set you up with another guy from Golden Boy and see where you stand, or even Showtime? Have they showed interest? Because this was a controversial decision in terms of fans tweeting, getting at Steven Espinoza saying that this is a robbery, Mauricio won, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Has there been anybody from the other side of the fence reaching out to you saying, hey, we want to get you back on?
Yeah, we're talking with Golden Boy, and so Willie Silver, manager, we were talking to Golden Boy and their people, and we already made a complaint, let's do a rematch. The people want to see that fight again, clear things up, and that's what they're working on right now. They said they're trying to work on a rematch for Danny. It's all up to Danny, of course. I think he's still out on vacation, so when he comes back, they're just going to push him for a rematch and see if he wants a rematch for his belts. But if they're saying that's what the first thing they want to do. But if Danny wants to move up and wait, like vacate his titles, they offered me if that were to happen, we can also make a fight offer me a fight with Lucas Matisse for those titles. So I mean, I would find that that's what I originally wanted to do, is become champion. So I'm still at the 140 class. So that would be nice too. I'll have some fun with Lucas Matisse and fight him for world title, and let Danny move on to 147, and I'll follow him and catch him later. And
Angel Garcia, big complaint is about headbutts. What are your thoughts about him saying that was the majority of your strategy and the damage that you've done at Danny's face is because of headbutts?
No. He's making excuses. There was only one headbutt where he went in at me too. It was an accident headbutt. It was on the cheekbone. Nothing happened on there. And then there was another light headbutt. I don't remember which round. It wasn't that big a deal for both of us. Nobody was cut. And the rest of the time, that nose that was busted, he said, with all the cuts he had, he said were all headbutts. They were not headbutts. Me fighting, and every fight knows when you go and you're an inside fighter, you put your head on his chest. And that's what I was doing to Danny Garcia. And if you see in the corner, what Danny's dad was saying to Danny was, get underneath, put your head on his chest, Danny, bend your knees. Danny didn't do that. I was the one that was doing that. That's what you're supposed to fight. That's how I was taught by my original trainer, Rudy. Always told me, when you get in, if you're an inside fighter, you always want to have your head in his chest. And that's what I was doing. If you see the fight, I'm putting my head in his chest. I'm not bumping up, trying to headbutt him. And there weren't no other head clashes. There was only one head clash and one baby one that was nothing. Everything else was punches that bruised him and bleeded him up and made him bust his nose. So you see that clearly. Danny's dad tells him, put his head underneath my chest, right? So I don't know what he's talking about.
Right. Gabriel?
You mentioned following Danny up to 47. Not necessarily just him, but campaigning up there. You're 33. I mean, do you feel, and you've held this weight for a long time, do you still feel very comfortable at it? You look lively. You look like you have everything after making weight. How soon till it move to 47, do you think? I mean, you just want to wait till this title situation susses out?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of fighters at 140, there's a lot of guys that can still fight. At 140, I can still make the weight. I think anybody who says they can't make weight and have to move up is I think they're just lazy. They can discipline themselves to go down in weight. I feel if I can make the weight, I feel good. I'm 33 years old. I haven't been beat up. I haven't been in too many wars. So I still feel fresh at 140. I still want to fight a couple fights there. And then I'll move up to 147 or to follow Danny and take him out there, chase him there and then go on from there and fight whoever else is up there. At that, eventually, I think they're all going to start moving up.
Bro, I hate to see what you think is a war because I thought you've been in some wars. To tell you the truth, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
my kids have been busted up, but I don't feel wore out. I had a I started at 27, so yeah, Provodnovo was a pretty tough fight. Yeah. Sometimes like I haven't been in any wars, and everybody's like, no, well, what's Provodnovo with your face, But yeah, I guess I have been. But I don't feel like they're wars, Maybe I just got bruises those fights. I don't know.
Do you think you really, you said like you came to the sport so late, so in many ways you're kind of young in the ring. Do you feel like you finally really know what you're all about as a fighter? I mean, you fought a lot of good dudes, and this was probably your most complete performance. Would you agree?
Yeah, I felt finally I got to live up to my name, Maestro. I've been, been problems in the past, either with my promoter and the fights that were getting me, and back-to-back close, tough fights that I've had. And I think that it all came together on this fight. I just focused really hard for this fight, and I got to display everything I ever wanted to, and I feel I have so much more, that I can do. I feel like there's still a lot of on the rope fighting that I can do that Danny never pressured me enough to get that to show people. It was just so many things that I wanted to do in that fight, but I felt I was winning comfortable what I was doing. So, in the future, hope you guys will get to see more sides of me.
Well, you didn't want to keep that on the ropes thing to yourself. You're trying to get a rematch with him. He's like, great, now I can't take him to the ropes.
Right.
Yeah, I got him covered on all angles. Yeah, I think it was a nightmare from my trainer, my manager. The last thing he said in the press was, "It's going to be a nightmare for you." And I think Danny probably losing some sleep. I don't think he slept that night. And if his friends are honest, they'll let him know the truth.
Yeah, definitely. So let me throw this out there for you really quick, because the thing that Danny and them are saying is these are the excuses that were coming up, is probably overlooked you. The headbutt couldn't make weight. It was just an off night. How does he prove all that against you? The rematch, right? A rematch is what needs to happen in order to kind of erase what happened to him on Saturday.
Yeah, if that's the case, then give me a rematch and get in shape. I don't understand any of those excuses, because before the fight, they were talking all this big stuff that, and tweeting all his workouts and how great shape and how ready he is. If the fight was tomorrow, he's at weight already. They were the ones saying all this stuff, that they were going to knock me out in 5 rounds, They were the ones doing all the big talk, and that he was going to stay at 140 for a while. He said all this, and as soon as the fight was over, how quickly everything changed, that he's moving up already, that he struggled with the weight, now that everything was just, all backwards, they were all just excuses. And no, I didn't believe none of that. He have an off night, he's the champion of the world, and he had an off night. Off night, that means you lose. You had a bad, like he said, it was like a bad hair day, jokingly, and he was laughing. Well, you had a bad day, you lost. You have a bad day in weight. Your bad day, you're the champion of the world. You had 4 months to prepare. I had 8 weeks. He had all the time to prepare. And this was his homecoming. He had all Puerto Rico behind him. Why would you slack up on that if he did? If it didn't, then shame on him. But, I doubt it. But even if, then give me an opportunity and straighten things out if that's the case. And like the Puerto Ricans out there said, do it again, but not in Puerto Rico, they said.
Right. Absolutely. Well, Melissa Herrera and Maestro, brother, thank you again, man, for coming on, leaving the ring. Really appreciate. And I hope you get that rematch. If not, I hope you get another big fight. And, I think finally now fans can they can appreciate what you bring to the table, and they can appreciate your style, because like I said, styles make fights, and this was definitely a style that was going to give Danny Garcia. I was talking about this as soon as the fight was made. I was harping about it, saying that this was a really tough match for Danny Garcia. I know, but everybody was kind of overlooking it, and I want to thank you for keeping it, keeping it truthfully for me, so I don't look like a damn liar when I was talking about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there were so many guys that they give me no chance. I was reading all the stuff they were saying about me, and I'm glad I proved a lot of people wrong, And hope they start to follow me now, and they get to see great fights from me.
But there you go. You can follow Mauricio on Twitter at Maestro, and keep in contact with him. Again, brother, thank you again for coming on, and I appreciate it, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Oh, thank you guys. Anytime.
All right, brother. Take care.
All right.
Mauricio Herrera here on Leaving the Ring. I really like this kid, man. Even before we had him on, remember he was set up to fight Bam Bam Rios, and then Mike Alvarado, and he doesn't win all the time, but he shows a valid effort in everything he does, and I think you're absolutely right, Gabriel, that this was the complete Mauricio Herrera that we've ever seen. This was the perfect fight. This was his perfect strategy, perfect game plan. It's now it just leads to, can he do it again? Would he be able to do it again with Danny Garcia if a rematch was to be made? Because I'm curious to see whether some of the things that they're claiming have any truth in it. Or does Danny come in watching that fight, that first fight they had on Saturday night, this past Saturday, and then finally coming up with a real game plan? Because to me, it was almost like they went in too cocky and thinking like, oh, this guy Mauricio Herrera, nobody's really heard of him, blah, blah, blah. He's there to be hit. You should be able to take him out of there quick, because he's not one of the top names that most fans and people on Twitter and social media are harping about, or going like, oh, this guy's dangerous. Danny, you're going to lose. He went in there like, okay, here I am, Puerto Rico, and I'm gonna look fantastic in front of everybody because this is who I am now. I'm Swift, and it didn't happen at all. So comes back with a rematch, has a game plan this time around, and can Mauricio adjust to that new game plan that Danny has? Because there's not, it can't take nothing away from Danny Garcia, in my opinion. I think the guy is the goods. I think that he's got, tremendous power at 140. I think that he could be mobile when he needs to be. He can box. I just think that he needs to continue fighting as an underdog rather as the favorite, because he felt like the favorite on Saturday night. He just couldn't do it. And even if he was fighting as the underdog, guess what? The underdog outboxed him and made him look sloppy and silly.
Yeah, I think it's always going to be styles with him, because the thing is, he doesn't have a huge punch, although he's starting to learn how to turn it over a little bit. He's always going to have to, go these. He's like a marathon runner, but he's learning how to run that marathon really well, and really take you to places that you don't want to be taken. I really enjoyed the performance. He's a guy who I think that what's going to happen with him is they're going to try to get him at 47. If they fight him ever again. He's a terrible style matchup for Danny. So he's not really a good style matchup for anybody. So I think, at some point, they'll probably keep him at 40 for a while, match him tough, match him with punchers like Matisse. I think Matisse would have just as much trouble with Herrera.
He's
I
think
guy
so too.
He'll really, yeah. I mean, I think, he might, I don't know. I think it's an interesting fight. I would like to see it. I don't understand why Lucas Matisse would be fighting for belts coming off a layoff and a loss, but, it's not my world. It's boxing's.
If I was part of the Lucas Matisse team, I would definitely say, as a comeback fight, hell no. He needs to regain back confidence. He needs to get his head back into the game. Losing to Danny, I think it takes a big part of you. I think it was a much more bigger defeat than he had in prior, because prior a lot of folks thought he had won against Judah. With Danny, he just couldn't. Talk about rhythm. Danny had a taste of his own medicine, because he took the rhythm away from Lucas, and Herrera took the rhythm away from Danny. So styles do make fights, and like I said, it's kudos to Mauricio Herrera. He didn't get that win, the official win on his record, but I think real boxing fans out there are going to agree that he won that night. He definitely won that night. Now, let's talk about the Fathom Punch. The 2014 Fathom Punch from heavyweight Deontay Wilder against his buddy, his friend, and ex-sparring partner who used to help out, Malik Scott. Now, the left hook lands on the temple, and then a straight right breaks between the gloves. We've already heard this. A lot of people believe that it was a setup, that Malik Scott wanted to see his friend move forward closer to the heavyweight contingency of title. But I don't know. You know, I've said this before, and actually we're going to have a guest next week that is part of investigating the NFL, NBA, soccer, tennis, and has grabbed hold of the FBI files to show proof of the rigging in the games, the worldwide scale rigging. So my question is now, I don't want to say that this was a fake drop, this, you know, that Malik Scott, you know, rigged this up or something happened there. But my only thing is that, okay, if these world sports and other team sports can be rigged, why couldn't a one single match be rigged? Those are the questions you got to ask. Now, not necessarily is it true, because I watch the fight, and I keep watching it over and over, and I see the punches do land. We don't know how hard Deontay Wilder gets, you know, to punch. And we don't know how well Malik Scott was prepared. So I think the only way we're going to find out where Deontay Wilder kind of stands in the heavyweight pool of fighters is for him to continue fighting to see whether or not that punch is real, because that's the big question right now. How real of those two punches, those two-piece punches that were landed on Malik Scott or not landed on him, is there truth to it? Because there's a lot of doubters right now saying that this didn't look organic at all.
I don't know if it's a fixed fight. I mean, that's a lot, you know? That's saying a lot.